Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd on Yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey, a fun-filled collection of pillows for your entire English alphabet and numbers from 0 to 9. Today's video will be covering the number or letter stated in the video title. These 13-inch three-dimensional pillows are not only adorable for the kids' room, they can also serve as an educational resource in the classroom. Imagine an entire class filled with each letter and number. Imagine the colors of each of them being different to illustrate learning colors. These are just awesome. On screen now is the comprehensive menu of what today's tutorial is all about. Note the minute marker of each chapter, and if you are looking for something specific, feel free to fast forward ahead to the time stated on screen. In chapter number 1, we're going to learn how the pillows are formed. In chapter 2, we're going to understand the pattern symbols. In chapter number 3, we're going to get a general overview on how to read the patterns, and I'm going to try to make your life a lot easier. And then finally in chapter number 4, we're going to walk through the number or letter indicated in the video title. For your success, the only way to learn how to do these projects are to know how to read the diagrams. Without further ado, if you're still here, let's move on to chapter 1 and we're going to learn how the pillows are formed. In chapter number 1, we're going to look at the pattern requirements for the hook and yarn. We're also going to cover what is done to form the pillow, and I will be explaining the gussets that create the three-dimensional look and cover the stuffing process. So let's take a quick look at this pattern, and what we have is 16 pages and it's the entire alphabet and also all the numbers that you need from 0 to 9. Inside everything is all of the diagram format that you see and all of the tips that are used within each of the letter or number that is used. Today you're going to need a size F crochet hook, a 3.75 millimeter, and each one of the letters consists of 2 Caron Simply Soft yarn balls. Now you'll notice that the hook is quite small, and that's because it's going to give you a nice tight look when you're going to construct these as well. So let's take a further look into this pattern because there's a lot of great things in this pattern. So inside this pattern you have to follow the actual diagrams that are available to you. So some of these patterns are more complex than others depending on the shaping, and each one of the numbers or the letters are 13 inches tall. So that means that you can spell out words, you can use numbers with it as well, and each one of the letters or numbers will be the same height as each other. The only thing that's really truly written out is the main gusset area, which I'll talk about, and then it has the information for finishing it up. So this is the only place where there's actually a lot of words, and the rest of it is all just in diagram format that we'll cover later on in this tutorial. So what we have to do is that we have to construct a three-dimensional look idea. So let me show you what this looks like in a bigger photo. So here's what it looks like as a three-dimensional pillow. So what you have here is that you have the front face like so. You need to create 2 of those. So one is the front face, one is the back face, and then you need to create a gusset that is completely following on the outside here. So if there's any interiors like this, then you have to create a separate gusset for that area. And how do you know the size? Well, each one of the stitches that goes all the way across and up through the rows is equaling to 1 single crochet. So you're going to single crochet these gussets into position as you go along in order to do it. So because there's 2 sides of it, you got a front B and a back B, you're going to complete all your gussets on the 1 B first, and then you're going to start stuffing it when you get the second B to place it on top. So you'll stuff as you go when you're placing everything into position. So this is the gussets, and we'll cover those a little bit later as well. So let's take a look at the letter itself, and let's just examine that quickly. So this is a quick example of the letter A. I'll explain why there's a color difference here, and I'll explain how that works within the pattern as we go through there. So to make the letter A, you'll need to make 2 of these, and then you'll need to make the gusset, and the gusset is what appears in between. So just looking at the gusset right here, this is a gusset here, and so when you're ready to go, you will just then single crochet these all into position as you go. So let me show you how to put on a gusset. So once your gusset goes all the way around, you're going to want to eye it out as close as you can. Now what I would recommend is that you put your gusset in, but don't finish off your gusset, because you may have to add on extra rows, or you may have to take anything out if you've gone too far. So once you start laying everything into position, it gets really better off to know exactly how long you want to go. So each one of the rows equals a single crochet as you work your way up or down this thing. Okay, and then when you're going along edges where you see stitches, each one is a stitch when you go to attach. So for your gussets, not only are you going to need an outside gusset, but you also need an inside. So if you have a shorter one like this, you have to make one for that. So let's learn how to attach your gusset. And so the gusset color and the A should be the same color, and the yarn that you're going to use to attach should also be the same color. So what you're gonna do is that you're gonna go and you want to attach it to your project where it's not obvious to have a seam line, because this gusset's gonna come all the way back around and join here. So you'll have to sew that together later. So what you need to do is that you need to insert your hook into the outside stitch like so, and then you're just gonna match it to a stitch on your A. So the right side's facing up for me, so it's the side that you'll be looking at, and you want to join with a slip stitch, chain 1, and single crochet into the same spot. So each one of the rows are going to equal each other as you go. So you just move down the row in the gusset and then just straight across and into the A, okay, and it equals, and then you just single crochet it all together. And you're just gonna follow it all the way around. So when you get to a corner, which I'll get there in just a moment, so let me get there. So I'm just gonna quickly match them. You cannot stuff at this point because you don't have your second A ready to go. You're only attaching to one of the A's so far, so you don't have to worry about your stuffing at this moment. And as soon as you get to a corner, you begin to turn the corner just naturally. So you don't have to add on extra stitches, so just going in and just going into the corner here and just follow it around. Okay, so now the A's turned here. So then you're just going to continue with your gusset and go along the stitch work, and because it's a flat normal, you're just gonna go and just follow the stitches. So each one of the rows still equals the spacing of the single crochets that you have on the other side. So you can see this just naturally kind of turned, and this is what makes it bubble look when you're looking at these pillows. So you started off, when you look at it from this point of view, that you came and you just naturally turned, and then you'll come again and then you'll naturally turn, and you'll create a box shape like so. So the second A, once you're ready for it, you're just gonna start in the same spot and you're going to attach, and then you're gonna stuff as you go. They say to stuff at a certain point to leave a gap. The problem is that if you have to stuff way over here, how do you get your hands all through there and make it nice and even? It's easier to stuff as you go. So this is how you attach your gussets, and you need to attach gussets exactly where everything there is. So some of the letters, like the letter C, has nothing interior, so it's just a matter of following this. The C and F is the same way, but a Q would then have a hole in the middle, right? And so would an O and a P and all of that. So you just want to watch and make gussets for anywhere that you need to fill it in order to create the shapes. So when you go to look at the pattern like so, you see that B needs an interior gusset, 2 of them, A only needs 1, and then everything else is just a matter of following it all the way around. So without further ado, let's go on and move on to chapter number 2. Welcome to chapter number 2. In this chapter I'm going to cover all the symbols that can be found within the diagrams. Some of the patterns are not as complex as others for shaping, so not all symbols may be used in each one of the patterns. So here's a close-up look of the stitch key and a diagram. So all of the letters and numbers are the same as far as it's mostly all just, it is all just single crochets, and the only thing that difference is that it changes on the edging in order to create the tilting action. You'll notice that all of the letters have a vertical straight up and a horizontal straight across. So no matter what angle any of the letters are on, they always will stay parallel to each other, and so therefore if it was an X, you will never see that these stitches are turned sideways in order to create its way up. So one side will always be decreasing if it's leaning in this direction, the other side will be increasing to create that lean. So in the stitches that you see here, there are symbols. So if it is an oval shape like this, this is a chain, and you'll see that every time you go to chain up to start a row, when it says chain 1 and then single crochet into the stitches, then that's a chain. You'll also see it when you're adding chains like this. This is a builder chain, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but anytime you have to do chain work, it's represented by that. Now a slip stitch is whenever you go to join anything. So if there's anything on this one, this particular A has nothing like that as far as slip stitching to join anything. And actually there's one, no there isn't any one on here, but some of them have a slip stitch in order to get you to move stitches if you have to, and we'll explain those if you hit a letter that I will teach later. The plus sign like so is a single crochet, and you can see it's all just consistent, and you'll also see that it's consistent in the actual thickness of each one of the letters as well, and as well as the numbers. So there's different kinds of single crochet increasers or decreasers, and so this one here, if this is 2 single crochets but they have the same top, so 2 single crochets are going to become together, so it's single crochet 2 together, and so whenever you see that, you're decreasing. So let's just find out where that is. So here is an example right here. You can see these 2 stitches right here are becoming 1 by doing a together decrease like this. You can also see that 2 plus signs have the same base, okay, and it goes up. That's an increaser. So you can see that it's going on the outside. So whenever you have to increase stitches, you'll see that there's 2 plus signs into the same stitch. You'll also see what appears to be a chain, like these 2 over here. So this is just whenever you have to start a row. So let's take a look over here in row number 5. You can see that it is a chain, and then it looks like this. So it's a chain and 2 plus signs into the same one. So you're chaining 1 and then 2 single crochets into the same stitch. That's what that is. This one over here is a decreaser. So it's a chain 1 and the 2 stitches become 1. So you can see that right over here. Okay, so on line number 6. So chain 1 and these 2 stitches are becoming 1 with this symbol. So these are what you're going to run into, and let's talk about the builder chains, because the builder chains are what really matter on these particular. So welcome to the letter F. Now the letter F is a prime example of having a builder chain, but there's other letters and numbers that have builder chains as well. So what happens is that you're gonna follow this pattern straight up, and then all of a sudden row number 22 you have to single crochet yourself across. The problem is that you can't just single crochet here because there's nothing to single crochet to. So in this particular instance it tells you at a certain point at the end of row 21 and rows 41, drop the loop to be picked up later, and then it says add a separate yarn, okay, strand, and chain 26 and fasten off. So what it's telling you here is that you have to chain a set number of stitches. So you attach and just instantly chain and then fasten off. And it seems kind of silly, but the reality is that you can't continue this line without something underneath being underneath. So this is a builder chain in order for you to continue along. So you'll see that on the top of the F, but you'll also see it on certain other letters and numbers, and you will see it in certain instances like this. So whenever there's instructions that match something, so for example you see that there's a notation on the outsides of the letter or the number, you'll see that it will match the actual instruction. So what we have here is the number 0, and what we have here is that whenever there's a specific instruction like here, it matches up here. And so this one here is kind of a really interesting one, because the fact is that it has a builder chain, but the builder chains are so small. And so it says with number 2, it says add a separate yarn strand in the first single crochet of row 2, chain 1 and fasten off. You were adding just a 1 chain here just to fasten off, and unfortunately you need it in order to build yourself out, in order to make all this work. So it's one of those items that you have to include that in in order to keep the letter being consistent and equal with each other. So these are the builder chains, and whenever we use them in a letter, that's what that is required. So without further ado, let me show you exactly what the stitches are for when you're going to look at the symbols. So let's give you a demonstration of the stitches and things that you'll need to know. Whenever you're attaching a new section of yarn to it in order to build up the blocking area, you have to then attach a new section of yarn. So you'll just insert it into the very first stitch. This is just a rough example on how to do it, and all you're just going to do is attach it with a slip stitch and then begin. So then you'll chain 1 and then single crochet. But what I want you to do is look for this strand that is the ending strand and crochet right up over top of it when you go to single crochet, and you can bury that in as you go, and then you'll never see it at the end. Okay, so this is how to bury in your yarns whenever you're doing new sections. So most of the letters and the numbers have the blocks of yarn in order to complete it. So if you do it this way, you'll never see where you stopped and started, and your letter will look all consistent and equal as if it's one strand, even though it's made up of maybe a few. So that's how you would bury your yarn, and once you're satisfied with that, you can just simply cut at the end because you buried it long enough, and then you'll never see where you stopped and started on either side of the project, just like so. So that's how you do that. So let's move along and let's start going through that stitch key. So if it says to chain with the oval, it just means chain. So you're just yarning over and pulling through. So if you have more than one chain, you just yarn over and pulling through. So it's just a chain. So that's that oval that you have. So if you have a slip stitch, what happens with that one? So let's concentrate on that. So if you have a slip stitch, all you're just gonna do is then you attach to your yarn like I just showed you here. That was a kind of a slip stitch. But if you have to slip stitch, and let me just show you a new section here. So if you have to slip stitch, you just go into the stitch, pull through and through. Okay, so it's just through and through. Don't mind that chain that I just started with. So it's slip stitch if it's asked you to do it. If you're attaching new yarn or anything like that, you just go into the stitch, pull through and through. Okay, so that's a slip stitch. So let's cover on how to do a single crochet. So it would be when you start up anything, it'll be chain 1 in 1 single crochet into the same one. And so you're just going in, pulling through and pull through 2. So in, pull through 2, in, pull through 2. And that is your single crochet when you're going to do that. So let's cover on doing 2 single crochets into the same stitch. Okay, so let's just turn our work. So chain 1, and if it asks you to do 2 single crochets into the same stitch, so I chain 1 first, and you're just gonna put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So then those 2 stitches just are sitting into the same stitch, and you move along like that. Okay, so these only appear on the edging. They never appear on the interior of any of the letters or the numbers, which makes it nice and easy. So if you have it on the outside of the letter, okay, or on the other side, it's just a matter of just putting in 2 into the same one. Just like that. So let's turn our work and review on how to do 2 together. So if it tells you to chain up 1 and then put the first 2 together, you go in, you just insert your hook into the first stitch, pull through, and then go to the next stitch, pull through, and then pull through all 3 or all 3 loops. So those 2 stitches just became 1. So then you'll move across your number. There's a couple numbers where it appears right in the middle of the work, and I'll point those out if I hit those. I know the letter A has it, and I'll point that out as we go. But so then what if the last 2 are then into the 2 together? So you're going into the next one, pull through, go into the final one, pull through, and then pull through all 3, and those 2 just became 1. So that's how you do those being together. So that's it for the stitch key. We had a chain, we had a slip stitch, a single crochet 2 together, and we also put 2 single crochets into the same one. That's all you need to know when it comes to doing any of these patterns. So let's take a look at these patterns. I have the letter A as my example today, and you'll notice that there's different colors of single crochets that are here. This is really helping you to indicate how this pattern is being put together. So what I want you to do is I want you to visualize the letter being constructed from the bottom up. All of them are constructed starting at the bottom, working their way to the top of the letter or the number. So you're going to notice that you're going to start building, and in this particular one it says start on the right leg. So it says to start over here, and look what happens here. It's like we have to go all the way over here. But if you're only working on here, what happens? You have to then stop at a certain point and start the left leg, and then there's a builder chain right here. So in order to continue this same yarn up here, all of this has to be done first. So and then you carry up, and then once you have that done, you'll notice that it will still continue to carry up here because it'll get to the point where you'll run into this area in the middle. So then at a certain point you're gonna have this constructed, then you're gonna need to do this, then you carry it up and you'll get all the way to here. You're then going to then start here and build your way up, and then just carry on over top just like so. So if I look at my A from a real point of view, this I constructed it just like it was showing in the actual diagram. So let me show you that to you now. So the A was constructed, and I started off here. This is a stitch marker. I'll explain that just more in a moment. But you can see it's the same yarn, and then I got to here and I had to stop because there's no way that I can take this yarn this way without having something underneath it first. So what happens is that I get to this point and I stop as per the instructions, and then I started up in this here and I worked my way across, and then I stopped. So once this was constructed across, I was able to pick up my yarn and go all the way across like so, and being able to complete. And eventually I get to a certain height that I have to stop, and this same yarn then travels up this side at this point. Okay, so then what happens is at this moment in the instructions, I've got this complete, I've got all this complete, and all of this section is now missing. So then I have to start up here and work my way as per the diagram, and once I get to a certain point, I then can travel that yarn all the way across in order to finish it to the top. So when I compare this right here, I started here and I stopped. I started this section and got myself across, and then I carried up. See? You see that? And then I got to here. I then picked this up, and you see this is the same color of blue, so it's the same yarn strand that did this. So whenever we have different kinds of colors, it means that we're picking up yarn and continuing. Here's the thing, you gotta watch that right side of the project. So the reason why you're having to watch that right side of the project is that you don't want any of these joins to be out of sync with each other, so you have to maintain that. So here's my tip for you. This will save your life a lot in crochet. It really will. So let me tell you a little bit about that. So when I started my crochet project, I put a brown stitch marker in right as soon as I finished the first row here. So you can see that it's brown. So this tells me that anytime that I see this brown stitch marker, I'm looking at the right side of the project. So I'm looking at the side I'm supposed to look at. So if it happens to turn over and the brown side is over here, I know that it's not in sync with the pattern, that I'm looking at the reverse A. Now the A, does it really matter if it's forward or backward? Not really. But there's certain letters like G and P and F and all those where if you flip them upside down it matters. So you want to keep an eye on your pattern in order to knowing it's the right side or the wrong side. So just to verify that, I put in a pink stitch marker here when I did the brown, because the problem is that even though you get this section done at a certain point in this pattern, this section here it's still not attached to anything, so you don't know what is right side and what's wrong side. So when I started that, I said I put a pink stitch marker right in this section so that I knew that if this section turned over at any point, I knew that I was looking at the wrong side. So when I went to go attach this as I went across, I made sure that the yarn here matched here and this one here matched, so that when I came straight across that I knew that these letters were facing the right direction, because then that makes that stitch that is going to attach everything be in line and look the same. If you do the wrong stitch when you're doing the attaching, you will see a gapping space that will appear and it will be very obvious. So when you're looking at this particular diagram, even though your A will all be the same color, it'll all stay in sync with each other, but you still have to keep an eye on what's in your right side and your wrong side for doing these kind of things. On other letters like L, it's a very straight shot. So you can see it starts off here, there's only one set of instruction, and all of a sudden you're just getting it very easy. So this kind of letter is very simple. It's the same yarn strand, so once you get to a certain point you just stop and then you just start working your way up. So other letters are more complicated than others. So a T, for example, has a builder chain. So even though you started up here, you can't go equally on both sides here unless that there's a builder chain. You can see that there's a section right here, and this is telling you here to attach a separate yarn strand here, and then it says chain 15 and fasten off. So you're chaining 15 and fastening off, so that when you start this row here you can go straight across and then catch that chain into position and then continue up. So you have to watch things like these builder chains when it comes to this. Other things, let's take a look at the V, for example. So the V will start off in the bottom here, and you'll just work your way across and follow the instructions, and then eventually this same yarn strand will then carry up for the remaining of the V, and then eventually you'll come back and with the same color of yarn but with a different strand that you'll finish off this V. So you just have to carefully watch that when you're going through these patterns in order to make it work. You can see here on the Z, okay, the Z is just a straight, it's just one strand. The way they designed it, it's the same strand that is going to work everything into position for you, and that's kind of a neat idea. And let's see any other letters that are an issue. So a W, for example, it says start with the left leg. So we start with the left leg, and you can see that you complete all the black first, okay, and then it says work the right leg. So you can see you're going to complete this and complete all the black, and then it says with the right side leg joining, so you're going to want to do your stitch markers so you know, and then you're going to then complete going up the right side just like you see here, and then you can then see in the center section Okay, so actually it's this one here. So it's gonna be coming up and you're gonna fill in the center section. So that's the same yarn, and then finally you're gonna come to the left one here and then finish that up. So you're just gonna follow these instructions as you go, and each one of the letters has a difference of color in order for you to easily identify what you exactly need to do. So an N is a little more complicated, so it says start on the left leg first. So you're gonna do all this first and then stop. Okay, that doesn't mean that you fasten off all the time, it just means that you stop, and then you're gonna come down to the right leg and you're gonna work this up. But look, you're then going to have to go up in this direction and in this direction, and then you're gonna have to fill in the top. So some of these letters can be a little bit complicated when it comes to the actual shaping. For example, like Q, I don't know if I have a Q. I have a Q here somewhere. A 0 or an O would be a great example of that as well. So an O, you're gonna start off and you can go onto the right side here as you follow it up. So you're just following the black, and then you can't do the top section unless this is done. So then that means that you have to come back here and finish it, and then you'll see how to finish it here. So you really want to watch these builder chains. You can see that they're here in the bottom, so it means that you had to extend it a little bit more. So you have to really watch the ones that have a curvature on them, especially in the bottom is concerned, in order to build out any stitches just like that. Q would be a little more complicated, just like you see here, and it's just a matter of just working each section piece by piece, and it's just a matter of just doing it, I guess. So let's take a look at Q. S would be the next, or sorry, QR, sorry. So then it says start on the left leg going up, and then you're doing the right leg, and then you can do this whole middle section, and then the middle ends up coming around here, and you see this is the same color just like this. Okay, and then you're obviously gonna fill this in, and then you're gonna finish off your letter right at the top. So this is how you kind of look at these diagrams, just piece by piece. They're really not hard to do, but you do require to learn how to read these in order to complete these. So in this final section, then what I would strongly recommend is that grabbing a highlighter and or a pen or anything that you need, I highlight as I go. So for example, you take I will need two highlighted, I need two patterns in order to do this, so that I can highlight as I go. So here would be the blank one here, and so then I'll just start on with a chain, work like so, and come back across, and every time I finish something is that I just highlight that I've done it. It's the best way to, in order to keep it. So put down your project real quick, highlight where you are, and then keep moving along. And so you will notice here I just kept highlighting as I did it, and then I stopped, and then it allows me just to kind of keep track of it. But your really key element to all of this is to knowing to put that stitch marker into place, just like you see here. Okay, so that just makes it a lot easier. So let's just start off with an example just really quickly. I'm just gonna start you off with a leg just to make sure that you understand what you're doing for stitch work, and then let's carry on from that point. So let's start on the letter A, and I'm just gonna show you just a few things, and then I'm not gonna do the whole thing with you. So it says to work 12, so it says chain 12 and work rows from 1 to 10 on the right leg, and then drop the loop to be picked up later. And so then you'll do the left leg, and then the left leg will expand over here, and I showed you the colors of that A anyway. So you're gonna create a slip knot, and you're going to chain a total of 12. So you just chain 12, so just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And you can see that it's single crocheting back across that chain. So second chain from the hook, which is normal, and you're just going to go in the back hump only of the stitch, and there will be a total of 11 stitches going across. Now do I care that it's 11? Not really, but if you want to keep an accurate count, you can do so if you want to. So then you're just gonna get to the end of that row. So before I continue any further from this, I want to tell you to put in that stitch marker so that you know where it is. So you know the right side from the wrong side, because it's easy to flip yourself around on these things in order for you to get it wrong. So what I'm gonna do is that off camera here I got a piece of yarn, so it's purple. So I'm gonna cut a little piece of yarn, and I'm just gonna pull out my hook, and right on this side that it just came from is that I'm gonna put that stitch marker in on the side here. I'm just gonna put it through, and it'll come out later like that. And so I'm gonna write the letter of the word purple. Okay, so I'm gonna say stitch marker SM purple. So whenever I so this is the stitch marker here. So whenever I see the stitch marker is here, it matches this side here. So if it's turned over like this, I know that I'm looking at the back side of the project because the stitch marker is on the wrong side. So now I'm going to follow that pattern up. So I move up to the second row and you can see that it's chain 1 and 2 single crochets into the first one and then 1 single crochet all the way. So what I have to do is that the increasing and the decreasing always happens on the edge. Nothing happens really weird in the middle. So I'm looking to what's happening on the edge, then I start and happening on the other side. So I'm just gonna simply just turn my work and I'm just gonna continue to move up in this pattern. Okay, so you chain up 1 and then it's 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So 1 and 2. And now it's just a matter of 1 single crochet in each of the stitches going all the way across as it indicates on the pattern. And what I haven't done is that I didn't highlight where I was in the pattern. So I want to make sure I do that at the end of this row going across before I lose count or where I am. It's easy to do so and I strongly recommend it. So you're gonna go right to the last stitch that's available to you as per the instructions. Like so. So I'm just gonna turn my work. So I'm gonna grab my highlighter and I'm gonna say okay, I just did row 2 is done and the chain's done. So now row number 3 you can see that there's 2 single crochets that come together and so I chain up 1, 2 singles together and it's just a straight shot across with just single crochets. So sometimes on some of these patterns is that you can have a decrease or an increase on both sides of the same line, but most of them it's only one side increasing, the other side stays the same. It all depends on the pattern you're looking at. So that's gonna be a decreaser, so I'm gonna chain up 1 and the first 2 are gonna be coming together and I showed you how to do that already. Okay, so you got 3 loops on the hook, put them together and then the remaining of it is going to be just a single crochet. So I can tell where the stitch marker is in my hand right now that I'm looking at the good side of the A. So I'm looking at the side that you'll see when you're going to display this A. Okay, and you go right across. Now because you put 2 in the first one over here, gotta make sure you don't forget that second one. It looks like it's compacted but it's in there, and so if you look at it and hold it down to your project, you will notice that your project is starting to go in this direction that matches the A, and this one is also leaning in that direction by keeping it horizontal. So then with my stitch or with my highlighter I want to say that I did row number 3. So row number 4 there's nothing weird about it. So it's just straight up. So it's just a matter of chain 1, okay, and then each stitch gets a single crochet. So some of these rows you just get a complete mental break of just slamming in some single crochets and stuff. But the shaping of these particular projects actually work out really good and really do a great job of keeping it accurate to what you're seeing on the pattern. So row number 4 I didn't have to think about it, but the very last one has 2 together, so making sure I only go into that one that's together. Don't accidentally go into a chain work here to create an extra stitch. So turning my work now, I've just done row number 4. So I want to look at the stitch marker and I can see the stitch markers right here. So I'm starting row number 5. So if I was starting row number 5 and my stitch marker was on the wrong side and looking like this and I was actually over here, I know that I'm not in sync with this pattern. So keep an eye on that stitch marker in order to keep you going up. So row number 5 it just shows straight up chain and single crochet in each as you're going across, and then the final one has 2. So hopefully you can understand this pattern in order to keep an eye on it. So just look for that starting chain, what's happening there. Is it increasing, is it decreasing, and then go and look at the opposite side of where you're going all the way across and see what's happening over there, because all of it is just single crochets that are just filling in as you go. So in the very final one over here there's going to be 2 single crochets into the same one to keep that in sync. So I'm going to turn my work and then as I just continue to move up, so then I just chain one single in each, and then I look to the other side here and you'll see that there's two together. So that becomes really quite easy in order for you to maintain. So some things like this one over here is that you're gonna build up and then it's gonna tell you to chain a certain amount, and when you go to do the chain you're going to then just match it. So when you go to match across, you're looking to where the stitch marker is to match the photograph, and when you go to extend this piece over here, and you can see it on the other A that I created, that we came up and you chained across and you attached it. So it's a really neat idea in order for you to stay balanced. So the key is to keep an eye on your pattern, keep an eye on your stitch work, and this is how you create these kind of things. Welcome to chapter number 4. Now that you know how to construct these pillows, we also covered on how to read the symbols and read the patterns in previous chapters. Now it's time to look at the specific pattern. This chapter will run through the letter or number to highlight things to watch out for. I will also review the order in which the project should be crocheted to. So without further ado, let's go. So welcome to the letter B. We have everything that you have here. It's got a few extra steps involved when it comes to this letter. You'll notice that there is side notes in brackets, and the brackets match the notes that are down here as you follow along. So you're going to start off here and you're going to want to put your stitch marker over here so that you can identify which is all of your front and the back before you really can see it. So you want to put your stitch marker in, and you're going to take this yarn and you're going to go all the way up here. So but before you can go all the way over here, you have to then build up this side here and then join it with a chain that you see, and then continue the letter B as you see, and then carry up again over here. So then what you're going to do then is then just fill in this spot over here, and you can see the instructions down here, and then you're gonna top it off with the instructions up here. You'll want to make a note down here as you see, as you grow out on this side here, you have to add extra little yarn strands in order to be able to accommodate all these little jets out, and that happens when you see it here. So just refer to the notes that you see here in the brackets on the side, just look down and then just follow it as you see. So this is the letter B. Until next time, I'm Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd as well as Yarnspirations.com. We'll see you again real soon. Bye bye.